So here's what we're getting into today. A run of projects that all come back to one idea. It's worth doing one extra go to end up with something you'll actually love for years. I'll show you a sweater that I finished 6 years ago. That's still one of my favorites. And the messier middle of the process. The reknits, the color I almost sorted myself out of, and the fit tweaks that I'm making so that these pieces actually suit my body. Reaching for a color that feels a little scary or changing a pattern to fit you, it is a risk. But when you nail it, the payoff is huge. But before we get into the episode, I need to take a little moment to say thank you. Thank you for the warm welcome to the Isabella sweater. I'm so grateful for you sharing me on, and I'm also blown away by the responses for the testnet for the Live tee that I also put out a few weeks ago. Since then, I've actually started a new job, so I haven't gotten back to all of the people that has said they would like to testnet for me, but probably by the time this goes live, everyone will have gotten an email back. But I just want to let you know I'm so grateful for every single one of you and that you are all cheering for me when I start my design journey. So if you would like to know whether a sweater is worth knitting, check out which ones you're still reaching for years after you finish them. And by that measure, this sweater is a real success. This is starting to get properly old. I think I finished it back in 2020, so it's really well worn. It's actually one of the first fingering weight colorwork yoke sweaters I ever knit. It's called Garden Gate and it's by the wonderful Jennifer Steingass, and she really has cracked the code on those gorgeous floral yokes. When I casted this one on, I was so ready to have one in my wardrobe, and I'm still so happy that I have one in my rotation. What I'm especially glad about, looking back, is that I went for 2 semi-solid colors rather than 2 fully solid ones. The main color is Factum, on the base The Minimalist by Ushitita. It's this deep shadowy plum, somewhere between dried blackberries and dark eggplant. From across the room it reads almost as neutral or solid, but close up the warmth comes through and it really comes to life. The contrast is pink graphite on the base Rødt Rosaria Mondim, dyed by La Bien-Aimée, a muted mineral top with a quiet blush of pink underneath. This was actually a leftover I had in my stash. I find that colorwork yokes is the perfect stash buster. You can use one new color that feels fresh and at the same time use one of those single skeins or almost single skeins you have lying around. The 2 colors sit at opposite ends of the value scale, so the colorwork had this lovely contrast. But because they are both earthy, tonal, semi-solid, purplish tones, they feel like they belong together. That little variation in the dye is exactly what gives the whole sweater its depth. If both colors were dead flat, it wouldn't have the same life. And honestly, the reason it's on my body today is a bit of a happy accident. We are, as some of you might know, in the middle of renovating our house, so all of my hand knits has been packed away in boxes for ages. It's only recently that I finally got to unpack them all. And when this one came out, it really hit me just how much of a favorite it is. It was really fun to knit too. The way the increases are worked is a little different from what I'm used to, and it makes them almost completely invisible. Instead of the standard left-leaning or right-leaning increase, she has you pick up stitches throughout the stitch in the round below. It's one of those small construction details that you never notice at first, but it's quietly doing a lot of the work to make the whole yoke look so beautiful. I love it when a pattern teaches me something like that. So 6 years on and back in heavy rotation. Still one of my favorites. And that is the whole point of it, isn't it? But speaking of things I'm proud of, let me show you what's actually made it off my needle since the last time. So Siv has been fully knit for a few weeks, but still she hasn't been blocked, she hasn't been buttoned, and she hasn't had a single end woven in. So, full confession, Siv is in the exact same place as she was the last episode. The only thing that has changed is that I have moved her into the finished objects part of the episode, purely to force my own hand. If she's sitting here in the FO section, I have to weave in those ends, I have to block her, and I have to sew on the buttons in the gap between filming this and publishing it. So that's my plan anyway. And honestly, I'm so happy with her. Siv is my very own design, and she came out of equal parts laziness and inspiration, which is where most of my favorite ideas starts. I wanted something to bring on holiday, a summer top with the cardigan opening in a cotton blend. But I didn't want to knit flat because working back purl rows is a bit of a drag for me. And I didn't want to steek a cotton blend either. That left me with this, which is some variation of a garter stitch. Because the moment I thought to drop a few knit rows into the garter, just enough to shift the texture and break up the rhythm, I was sold. I pair that with a cable panel I designed myself. It is this combination of an exo braid with a variant of a fern and feather motif. And the stitch pattern has really become the whole point of the piece. This is actually the very first design where I really gone deep into cables, and I'm so pleased with how it turned out. I love how the cable both winds out and draws back in with these soft curves that makes the whole thing hang together. The picture I had in my head really made it onto the needles, and that's such a satisfying feeling. The construction is my own contiguous recipe where I increase across the shoulders to create this defined shoulder seam. And then it gradually moves into some kind of a raglan increase from the shoulders until the underarms, which I usually find makes it sit perfectly at the shoulders and don't drag down. The yarn is Isager baby yarn, which is a baby alpaca and organic Pima cotton. It's soft enough to wear right against the skin with just enough cotton to keep the alpaca from going shapeless. The color is this muted gray with a faint lilac pull. It never reads cold, and the marl gives it this quiet depth that really lets the stitch pattern do all of the talking. And the exciting, slightly nerve-wracking thing about this yarn is that it grows like mad when you block it. So right now, unblocked, Siv is far too small. I'll pop a before and after photo of my swatch up here somewhere, so you can see what I mean. But I really have to just trust the process. I swatched it properly, and I have been keeping my gauge, so it's going to be fine. There's just always something thrilling about putting that much faith in the math without testing along the way. When you do all of the preparation, you just have to let it work for you. And I found the perfect buttons. These lovely mother of pearl ones just feels right for this cardigan. And this pattern, I am going to release her, so there is a test call down in the description. So if you would like to knit her, you do not have to use the scary cotton yarn that I used. You can use any fingering weight you prefer. I plan on knitting another one in fingering weight wool. So just pop your name in the interest form if you would like to test knit her. But now, I really do need to block her. But speaking of things that are very much in progress, let me show you what else are on my needles right now. The pain of ripping back is temporary, but the regret of leaving something not quite right lasts every time you wear it. This is what I've been telling myself a lot lately, because this cardigan and I have really been through it. If you're new here, this is the Marii cardigan, or now sweater. It's my own design, named after my grandmother, and I've pulled from the bunad I inherited from her. The one she made by hand over 50 years ago. There's this floral embroidery on it and a geometric pattern woven into the belt. And I've taken both of those, simplified them down, and tried to translate them into color work. So this isn't just a sweater I'm making up as I go. It means something, which is maybe why I keep refusing to settle on it. So a couple of updates since the last time. The first one I'm really happy about. I swapped out my red. I've been using this deep burgundy in Tinde, which is the Hillesvåg Pelstwool base, which is a rustic one with gorgeous luster, but it was sitting too far apart from everything else. So I switched to a clear, vibrant red in Sol, which is the lamb's wool that I'm using for the rest of the project. And honestly, that small change has fixed so much for me. The red and the pink are closer in value now, closer in tone, and that was always the point. I never wanted them to stand apart as contrasts. I wanted them to read as two different shades of the same pattern, like they belonged in the same family. And now they do. For this design especially, the quiet relationship between the colors just feels right. The second update is one that's hurting me a little, because I generally thought I was done ripping back when I swapped out my colors. And I've knitted almost all the way down to the point where I split for the sleeves. And I looked at it, and this second pattern right here just didn't have the same expression as I was hoping for. My original plan had this soft, rounded edge to it, and the first repeat is very angular and very sharp, and the two of them weren't speaking to each other the way I wanted them to. On top of that, the first repeat is very graphic, and the second one is very floral. So you got a geometric structured motif sitting right next to something very soft and organic. There was almost nothing trying to pull them together. It just didn't hang together as one piece. So I ripped back again, not everything this time, thank goodness, just to the start of the second repeat. But that was still the last 30 rounds before the sleeve split. I don't know about you, but for me, that is the slowest, most painful part of any project. The rounds are just so long at that point. Every single round takes forever. And when you're undoing the work you already did, twice. It really stung me a bit. But here's where I'm landed with it. And it's really something I want to get better at this year. Actually being willing to rip back. Because it does hurt in the moment, but I so rarely regret it. It almost always comes out better. It comes down to trusting your gut. When something feels off, it usually is. And getting it the way you actually want it is worth the wait and the extra knitting. The whole reason I'm knitting for myself is so that I can end up with garments that I really love and reach for again and again. And you don't get those by talking yourself out of redoing because the rounds are too long. I'll also say, the design is broken into really satisfying 5 almost separate sections to knit, which makes it weirdly motivating even on the third pass. And that matters because I'm already dreaming up a jacket version, something a bit calmer than this one. This one is a proper vitamin shot of color, so I'm leaning towards something a bit beige and navy, I think, but we'll see. But knowing how well the construction works now, I really can't wait to knit another. And honestly, I know what I'm talking about now because I'm on my 3rd trip through the section I find the most tedious. Anyway, that's where the Anne-Marie stands, still on the needles, but finally heading where I want her to go. All of these cables look like they need total concentration, but once the system clicks, I almost knit on autopilot. That's been the whole story with this one since the last time. I really settled into the rhythm now. The further I get, the more I realize this pattern is so much friendlier than it first looks. This is the Pearl Sweater, a design by Magdalena Parker of Knitonomy, and it has everything that makes a project hard to resist. It has those big flowing cables with this unexpected little twist to them, and a relaxed top-down construction. And when you look at the chart with all of the cables and the switching between knit, purl and seed stitch, it looks like the kind of thing that demands silence and your full attention. But it repeats in a way that just flows. As soon as the system sits in your hands, it's so much easier to read than I'll picture beforehand. I'm not counting and concentrating, I'm just following the rhythm. I finished the first part of the back and now I'm into shaping the neck and shoulders, which is where the constructions gets fun. It's knit from the top down and you start by knitting the shoulders one at a time and then combining them. I casted on stitches for one shoulder and shaped the neckline as I went. And at my size 4, along with a few others, it has its own little detail. An armhole cable, which is really just a few extra increases at the sides that adds room exactly where I want it. I love that. A small intentional bit of shaping, doing real work for the fit. When the first shoulder was done, I just started the second one, and it's basically the mirror of the first one. So I knew exactly what was coming, the same shaping, the same rhythm, just running the other way. That made it calm, comfortable knitting, and that's a really nice kind of knitting. Once both of the shoulders are in place and I'm done with this part, the front and the back gets joined together under the arm and the whole body becomes one contiguous round. And that's the part I'm really looking forward to. No more back and forth, no more counting in towards an edge, just the cables going and I'm knitting around. And that's something so restful about that, knowing that the fiddly shaping is behind me and what's ahead is just pure rhythm. I should say a little about the yarn too, because this project carries some extra meaning. And the yarn is a big reason why. The main yarn is Sunday, the Sandnes Garn Merino, and this particular yarn is leftovers from my wedding dress. So I knit one of the most significant garments in my whole life in this yarn, and now I get to continue into something new. I'm holding it together with a lace weight called Cozy Crime Lace from Through the Wardrobe Yarn Company, a blend of suri alpaca, ultrafine merino and silk that I picked up at Bergen Strikkefestival. The dyer started out with inspirations from her grandmother and reading the Chronicles of Narnia, which add this thread of childhood magic that feels completely at home in a project that's full of meaning. And the two yarn together, they just work. The Sunday brings the structure and the warmth, and the lace adds that signature halo of suri alpaca, a soft drape, and just enough silk sheen to lift the whole thing. The color is the softest blush held against the crisp white, and you get this gentle, marled, mostly white, with a quiet rose tones drifting throughout. Subtle and warm, and just a little romantic. So it's kind of funny. On paper, this is a complicated cabled sweater, and in practice, it's one of the most soothing things on my needles right now. I knit a little every day, steady and unhurried, and I savor every repeat. Pearl is still exactly where I want her to be, slow and meaningful, and I think that's the thing I keep coming back to. A pattern looking difficult and a pattern being difficult are not the same thing. Once you understand how it's built, the intimidation just falls away. Anyway, that's where Pearl stands, heading into that lovely contiguous rounds any day now. Instead of forcing my body to fit a pattern, I'm building a pattern that bends to my measurements. This is the project I'm enjoying the most right now, and I have to start with the colors because they are doing something for me this spring that I really needed. If you've been here a while, you know I live in Bergen, where we get well over 200 rainy days every year. It's rarely too warm, rarely freezing, it's just relentlessly wet. May is usually our reward, the month where everything blooms and the sun finally comes out and all of the gray feels worth it somehow. It's why we got married in May last year, on this perfect 20-degree day with the sun absolutely streaming. And this May has been just not that. It's been like the rest of the year, wet and just cold enough that you're happy wearing a layer of wool. So this project has been my little reminder that sun and warmth are coming. There will be a season where the wool can step aside for something lighter. And that's exactly what this is. A summer t-shirt. It's fitted, no positive ease, knit in the round with stripes. The main yarn is Mot Østen. This hand-dyed 4-ply yarn that's 50% baby camel and 50% silk. The silk gives it this shaft sheen and gorgeous drape that's just right for something fitted and summery. It's lightweight and smooth next to the skin. I actually bought it with no plan at all, which I know I'm not supposed to admit. And then I decided I wanted a little contrast stripe. So I bought this Emjak baby silk, a different base, but the drape and sheen made them feel like natural companions. The body alternates two Mot Østen colorways. Rusty Rose, which is this rose terracotta with golden shift, and Tori, which goes deeper into burnt orange and rust and mahogany. And the contrast stripe is called turquoise, a mineral turquoise that cuts right through all the warmth. They're not a matched set, but together they feel completely intentional, earthy and luminous, the way hand-dyed silk tends to be. But the real reason I love this one right here is I get to properly play with math. And this is the nerdy heart of it all. For me, sitting down with my measurements and a spreadsheet to work out the pattern that's perfect for me is so fun. I work in business administration, so a good spreadsheet is my home turf. But I do understand that not everyone shares my feelings about the well-built formula. So what I'm actually doing is experimenting with how much of the calculation I can automate. The dream is your perfect raglan, a universal pattern that works at any gauge. And once I've fine-tuned the formulas, I want to program them into a PDF so that you can enter your own measurements and the gauge you want to knit at, and the pattern will just adjust itself around you and your plan. That's the whole thing I care about, making custom alteration feel easy and approachable, because to me, that's the shift that changes everything. You can change the pattern to suit your body, your yarn, the look you're after, rather than the other way around. And I really hope it's useful for more people than just me, and that there's others out there who love to nerd out on good fit. The other thing I'm experimenting on with this one is bust darts. And I don't know if it's just me, but they've been all over my feed lately. Though that might just be because I've started following Sherry. She's goodknits_ on Instagram, and she's done this brilliant reel series on bust darts. Really useful, so go check her out if you don't follow her already. On this one, I have put horizontal bust darts, which honestly is just working a few short rows after you split for the sleeves. And I think it's worked out really nicely. With stripes like this, you do get a visible line on each side where the short rows turn. You can see them, they are right here. But I don't mind that at all. It feels like part of the construction and a bit of tailoring rather than a flaw. And this is actually also the start of something I'm planning. I want to do a proper deep dive into bust adjustments as a part of the new series I'm calling Knits That Fit. So I'm spending the summer experimenting on this pattern and a couple of others. And then come autumn, I will turn it all into something I hope can be useful. A little step-by-step guide, that's the hope anyway. So that's where this tea is. It's part summer daydream and part spreadsheets and a lot of fun. Okay, so I bought the yarn and a pattern that doesn't match at all. It's the wrong gauge, it's the wrong everything. And that's exactly why it's the perfect experiment. I'm really excited about this cast on, and the whole starting point is a little bit of a contradiction. The yarn I've chosen and the pattern I've chosen don't really go together at all, and some part of me really loves that. It all started with the yarn. I felt the skein at a knitting festival and just knew immediately that I had to make something summery with it. The samples that really sold me were the ones knit up in open, lacy stitches. The eyeless just felt so good in this yarn. So when spring came around, I ordered enough to make a summer top. The yarn is Marka garn from Oslo Microspinneri, this lovely little 3-person mill and an old barn outside Oslo. It's run by Pernille Volent. It's a Norwegian lamb wool blended with mulberry silk and linen. And that combination gives it this smooth, slightly lustrous surface and a yarn that reads more refined than your typical wool. The silk and linen means it has less stretch than pure wool, so it holds its shapes beautifully, which is exactly what you want for clean lines and a crisp stitch definition. And then I found the pattern, the Checker Plate Tee by Lily Kate France. The stitch is what makes it. It's this kind of industrial, almost architectural grid of eyelets. It's lace, but it's not the floaty kind, more graphic and structural. I looked at it and thought that's perfect for this yarn, except it's not perfect for this yarn because it's completely the wrong gauge. The pattern is written for fingering weight and the marca yarn I've bought is DK, so obviously I'm way off. But this is how I want it, so this is how it's going to be. And I actually think that makes it an ideal starting point, where the pattern and the yarn don't line up. You can't just follow along, you have to adopt. And adopting is exactly where you end up with something that's made completely for you. So I have finished my swatch and I'm getting the look I'm after. I really think it can become a beautiful top, but as expected, way of the pattern's gauge, which again is the whole point. My vision is a raglan, a fairly simple raglan, like the pattern already has, but I want the neckline to open up just a touch, just enough to see a little collarbone, nothing more than that, and with compound shaping that actually fits me and my body. And here's the part I'm so excited to play with. I want to add both vertical and horizontal bust adjustments. And let me talk you through what I'm thinking, because the math is where the fun bit is. The vertical adjustment gives me more stitches across the bust. The way I do that is that I fit the raglan to my upper bust measurement first, not my full bust as I usually do. And then I add the extra width I need only on the front of the work. So the raglan grows to my upper bust. And then those extra increases for the full bust go just on both sides of the front of the work. Some of the increases are worked at the same time, so you have to keep your head straight. For me, the difference between my upper bust and my full bust is about 15 centimeters. So I take that 15. I use my gauge to work out how many increases I need to add. I need to add 15 centimeters of width. And then I spread those increases on each side across roughly the last 10 centimeters before I split for the sleeves. For where my bust sits at this point, adding all of the increases before the sleeve split is a good fit. But if I didn't need all of the stitches that high, if I needed them a bit lower, I could have spaced the increases both across the end of the raglan and some after you split for the sleeves. You just have to see where your curves flow. That way I get the extra room I need at the front without adding any extra width across the back, which is exactly how you avoid that pooling of extra fabric in the back that I, at least, so often get in my sweaters. Then, once I'm past the fullest part of my bust, I'd normally take some of those stitches back in with a vertical bust dart going down the middle of each breast. But taking stitches in that way would cut right into the lace pattern of this top, and I don't want to disturb it. So instead I'm going to bring it in along the sides of the bust, closer to the underarm, basically where a side seam would be. I think I sacrifice a bit of the perfect fit around the bust, moving it to the sides. But all in all, I think it will be a better look for this top. And I won't take in the full 15 centimeters I added, a little less than that, because I quite like a bit of extra ease and movement around my waist. On top of that, I do want to do a horizontal adjustment too. And this works just like on the simple raglan tee I was talking about earlier, with a few short rows after I split for the sleeves. This is to get enough fabric on the front of the garment to go around my bust. And I know it will create the same kind of visible line at each side, like the simple raglan, but like I said, I don't mind that at all. But here's the challenge. A full pattern repeat would add too much length to the front than what I actually need. So after the adjustment, I think I have to work the lace slightly differently on the front than on the back. Otherwise, I would get this harsh line cutting right through the middle of the motif, either in the front or in the back. And my goal is to flow nicely both in the front and back. So I think I will need to kind of off-shift the patterns in the front and in the back. But that's a real challenge I do think I can solve. And that's the joy of it. It's a fun project and a fun experiment. Now, as you probably can see, I haven't gotten any much further than finishing the swatch since the last time. So my dream of wearing this summer doesn't look any more realistic than it did last episode. But I'm holding on to the plan, and if I doesn't quite make it, well, it will be a beautiful autumn top instead. Of that I'm completely sure. Anyway, that's the experiment I'm about to dive into. And speaking of things diving into my life, let me show you what's been added to my stash. My friend and I went to an indie dyer's open house to look at yarn. I went in for one fine follow thread and walked out completely suri-smitten, and I blame the sale basket in the corner. And that's the honest version of the events. The plan when Camilla and I set off to visit Mrs. Fox Yarn just outside Bergen a couple of weeks ago was completely innocent. Just to look at some new bases, and then I came across a basket of baby suri on sale, and things rather snowballed from there. So let me start with one purchase that actually went to plan, what I came for and had actually given myself permission to buy beforehand. It's this thin follow thread for a lovely summer blouse, and I landed on this one called Lystig. It's this softly hand-dyed dusty lavender with quite hints of blue woven throughout it. The color shifts depending on the light, and it never looks quite the same twice. There's almost this watercolory quality to it. It's cool tone and dreamy without being stark. It's 50% silk and 50% cashmere, and it got 800 meters to 100 grams. And it's absolutely beautiful. The silk gives it this subtle sheen you can see right here in the skein, and the cashmere softens everything into something that feels so luxurious. Together, they make a fabric with this beautiful drape, slightly fluid fall, perfect for a garment with a bit of movement. So that was the sensible bit. Now to the suri. There was two things that tripped me over the edge. First, I got to feel a sweater knit in double baby suri in this gorgeous pink, and I was so tempted. But I thought, no, hold yourself together. And then, as fate would have it, I found the exact same pink suri sitting in a sales basket in the corner. Just meant to be. But here's the part I'm pleased about. Instead of just grabbing double of this bright pink, I went with a warmer colorway to combine it with. And I really think the two together are going to be stunning. The suri itself is a single ply fingering with this soft, luminous halo. Suri alpaca has a natural silky quality that sets it apart from other alpacas. It blooms a little with wear and washing, and the fabric ends up airy but substantial. And these two colors is really what made them come home with me. The warmer one is called markjordbær, a sun-ripped coral with salmon undertones, the color of wild strawberries. It shifts throughout the skein, some bits leaning peachy apricot, others deepening into berry, with a quiet sheen that makes it feel lit from within. And then there's this hot pink, vivid, right at the edge of raspberry and fuchsia, bold and unapologetic, but warm rather than cool. And what the suri halo does to it is the real story. It softens the intensity into something dreamy, like the colors slightly out of focus in the best possible way. Electric from across the room, and then feather-like up close. I have gotten enough for an oversized sweater, and that's my plan. Something straightforward and lovely that just lets the yarn speak for itself. No competition, no fuss, just two colors I adore doing what they do best. So that's what's made its way into my stash this past month. If there's one thing I hope you take away from today's episode, it's this. Don't be afraid of the extra go. The rip back, the color you keep second guessing, a little adjustment that means measuring twice. That's where the magic is. It can feel like a risk in the moment and sometimes it stings, but the reward is a piece you'll really reach for year after year instead of one that quietly lives in a drawer, and that's always worth it. And if all of this talk of changing patterns to fit you has your wheels turning, this is exactly where I'll point you to next. I made a whole video about modifications, walking through how to adjust the pattern so that it works for your body. So check that out next. But until the next time, keep knitting what brings you joy.